Hi folks, welcome back to the channel and another flight with SimPilot 2450. Today we have a fun little GA flight in the JPLogistics Cessna 152. We are in the Bangor, Maine area, and what we're going to do today is do a local flight. We will be departing from the Old Town Airport, and we'll fly over here to Pushar Lake and check out Lucky's Landing. There's a float plane base here, and there's also a grass airstrip for K&T Aviation, Kathy and Timmy's. And this is a short, tight little strip, so this ought to be a fun little challenge for landing. We'll depart Lucky's Landing. We'll head down to Bangor International Airport, where we'll get a little experience in landing at a large airport. Then we'll depart Bangor, go over to my home airport, which is Brewer. This is a neat little strip. It's only about 1,500 feet long. It's grass. But the interesting thing about Brewer is you notice it's directly underneath the flight path for Bangor International Airport for runway 33. We actually had to fight the FAA to get a cutout because they tried to shut us down. And so the traffic pattern at Brewer is very interesting because it's only 500 feet above ground level. So it's a very tight little pattern. It is a right-hand pattern to the north and a left-hand pattern to the south. And again, things happen really quick there because it's a short runway and you're only 500 feet above the ground where you're doing all your pattern work. So we will start today in Old Town, and we'll just do a nice little circle here in the Bangor Old Town area. You might recognize Orono. This is the hometown for the University of Maine. Alright, well, let's get started. Here's our Cessna 150. It's a JPLogistics. It's a beautiful little airplane. Let's walk up and get started. Alright, we've climbed in. I'm buckled up. Let's close the door. And let's get ready to go. We'll turn our fuel selector to on. Let's go ahead and turn on the power. Check our fuel quantity. Looks good. So let's come on with our nav light. I'm going to crack the throttle. Come in full with our mixture. We can prime it a couple of times here. Alright, let's check the prop area. Clear prop. Check our engine instruments. Looking good. So today we'll depart runway 30. There's no tower at Old Town, so we're using Unicom 122.8. Select our runway. We'll take off runway 30 and let's announce our taxi.
Kilo Oscar Lima Delta Traffic Cessna 2450 is taxiing to runway 30.
Come on with our Taxi lights. Parking brakes coming off. We'll keep the windows open right now. It's still a little hot on the ground. You'll notice we have floats kicking around here. Old Town also has a seaplane base. So it's really a fun little airport to fly out of. This is the airport that I actually soloed out of. I learned to fly at Brewer Airport, but Brewer is so small and the airstrip is so tight and the pattern altitude is so low that learning out of Brewer, you'll do your first initial solo up here at Old Town, and then you'll head back to Brewer eventually and do your soloing out of Brewer. This guy get by, so I guess we can go ahead and close up our windows. Alright, let's head out to runway 30. So this is 30 right here. We'll hold short. We can set our heading bug. And we'll check our trim. Trim looks good. Let's go ahead and announce our attentions. We will be departing to the west. We're going to go over to Pushaw.
Kilo Oscar Lima Delta Traffic Cessna 2450 taking off runway 30 west departure.
Final looks good. We'll come on with our landing lights, strobe. So we'll rotate right around 50 knots. We won't be using any flaps. Everything is looking good. Come in with our power, nice and smooth. There's full power. Maintain directional control. And at about 50 knots, we'll come back with a little bit of pressure on the yoke. There's 50 knots. Coming back with a little back pressure. There, we're up.
Automated weather observation 1600 Zulu. Wind 286 at 4. Visibility niner. Sky condition few clouds at 1.
So what I'm doing now is I'm holding 70 knots. I can probably climb at 65. So I'm holding a little back pressure. What I'm going to do now is dial in some trim to relieve that back pressure. Okay, so right now I've brought in some trim to relieve that back pressure. So I'm basically flying with my hands off on the yoke. There's no back pressure. So what we can do is we can stay in the pattern once, maybe do a touch and go. We'll level off at 1100. Come back, probably just to 2300 on the power, saying that we're going to stay in the pattern. This is Interstate 95. So now we'll turn downwind. So I'm taking out some of that trim now because I'm needing to hold a little down pressure on the yoke, because we were trimmed at 65 and now we're going 90. So we'll take some of that trim out. So here's runway 30. Let's we can do one touch and go if you'd like. Well, we're going to be landing here when we come back, so why don't I just take you and show you the float plane base. So you can see right here is the float plane strip. Let's go ahead and we'll dive down. Well, not dive, but we'll descend down, take a peek. Now the way I'm descending is all I've done was reduce the power. I'm not pushing back or pushing down on the yoke. Again, you can handle all of your pitch with the throttle. So I'm coming in with a little power now just to reduce that rate of descent. This is the Warden service, got float plane and helicopter. But see, here's the float plane strip. This is the Penobscot River. And you'll notice when we come around the corner, this is where the seaplanes have docked. Several docks there. You can see some right now. So this is a really fun airport because you do have two paved strips plus the seaplane base. Let's climb up to about 1,000 feet and we'll head over to Pushaw Lake, which also has a seaplane base and a tight little grass strip. So I'm coming in with full power now, bringing the nose up. Again, if we don't want to hold that back pressure on the yoke, we can dial in some up trim. That will relieve that pressure. So right now I am flying hands off. So here we're going to level off for 1,000 feet. So now I'm coming in with some down pressure on the yoke. Coming back with the power. And once again, can trim up for our cruise. So I'm going to have to dial in some down trim to relieve that yoke pressure because I'm holding down yoke pressure. So we'll head over to Pushaw Lake, which is this body of water here. We'll go to Lucky's Landing. It's a tight little strip, but it's a good landing challenge. This is also a scenery that I created. My apologies that you can't use these sceneries right now, just for the fact that I haven't made them public, just because they're really not up to the standards that they need to be if I'm going to make them public. But I'm hoping this winter, when I have some time, I'll recreate these sceneries and actually upload them to flightsample.to. This will give you a nice little look around the state of Maine. As you can see, it's all pine trees. We are the most forested state in the nation. This is Mud Pond here. It's a nice day today, so we should see some boats out on push-on. Now again, we're all trimmed up for cruise, so I'm completely flying hands-off. This is why, again, trim is so important. It really relieves a lot of your workload. Instead of chasing around, trying to hold your altitude and pushing the yoke down, then pulling back and pushing down, pulling back. This is very helpful. Trim is your buddy. So, Lucky's Landing is right here. This is the Seaplane base. So what we'll do here, I still have our landing lights on and taxi lights just because it was such a short flight. So we're going to come back with the power a little bit just to start slowing up. Coming in with a little bit of back pressure just so we don't lose altitude, trying to maintain our altitude. So in essence, all we're doing is bleeding off airspeed. I'm going to come in with a couple of notches of flaps. Now the grass strip is right here. So we are on a left crosswind, getting ready to turn, left base, getting ready to turn final. So I'm going to come back with the power and come in with another notch of flaps, and maybe both notches, because we are high still. So there, I've got all the flaps in. You can see the airstrip now. It's a tight little airstrip. We're going to approach at about 50 knots. And I'm trimmed up for 50 knots, so I'm not holding any back pressure on the yoke. We do have wires here at the end of the field, so we've got to be a little bit careful. So I'm going to come in with a little bit of power, just make sure we clear these wires. See the balls. So we've got them cleared, so I'm coming back all the way now with the power. And we'll start to flare. So this is a tight little strip. I come in here with my 140. You definitely need to be on the ball, because you need to be landing and touching down exactly where you want. you're going to be doing a go around or you're going to be in the trees. So we're bringing up the flaps. We'll come off with our landing lights. Let's open the windows up here, get a little air. Reset our trim. And see if we've got any activity here at Lucky's Landing. This is Pushar Lake. This hangar here is for KT Aviation, standing for Kathy and Timmy. So you can see this is a fun little strip. You really have to be on the ball. See some float planes over here at the float plane base. Good day for sailing. Back taxi all the way to the end here. We're going to want all the space we can. I'm even going to come in with one notch of flaps for this takeoff. Here, we'll close our windows up. We've got one notch of flaps in. Our trim looks good. Let's get ready to go. Come on with our landing light. Stuck here in the grass. Alright, let's go. Narrow little strip. Gotta be careful to keep yourself out of the trees. Alright. Doing fine. With our flaps. Flaps are up. Okay, I'm coming in with some trim, up trim to relieve this back pressure on the yoke. And we'll probably climb out
Bangor
at
approach,
about
Cessna
65.
2450 is type Cessna 152.1 miles west of Mike Echo 27300 feet. Request clearance to transition Charlie airspace.
Cessna 2450 Bangor approach. Squawk 4156.
Squawk 4156 Cessna 2450.
So we will fly to
Cessna 2450 radar contact 1 mile southwest of Mike Echo 27700 feet. Cleared through the Charlie airspace. Maintain own navigation.
Cleared through the Charlie airspace Cessna 2450.
So we'll fly to Bangor International Airport. We'll do a landing there. So we will level off at 1100 feet. back with our power a little bit. Okay, so I'm holding some down pressure on the yoke. So I'm dialing in some down trim. Let's contact Bangor and let them know we'd like to land.
Bangor Tower, Cessna 2450, is 4 miles north, 1,100 feet, with Oscar touch and go.
Cessna 2450 Bangor Tower. Altimeter 29er, 2 wind 286 at 4. Enter left downwind runway tree.
Okay, so here's Bangor
Make left
International
downwind
Airport.
runway tree, Cessna 2450.
We are on a crosswind right now, basically for 3-3. We can set our heading bug for 3-3 if you like. I think the pattern altitude is 1200, so that's why I've climbed to 1200. You can see the KC-135s out here. Bangor is also an Air National Guard base. It is the 101st Air Refueling Wing, known as the Maniacs. You'll see their stickers all around the country. This is Herman Mountain here. You see there's a little ski slope there. This is Herman Pond. So again, I'm flying completely hands off. Trimmed up, pretty nice and level. So here we'll turn for our left downwind for Bangor. Again, it's fun to see the difference from landing at a very short runway to a very large runway like Bangor. Bangor was an actual emergency site for the space shuttle. So again, we're turning for our left downwind for 3-3. So here we can roll out. And again, that's why it's nice to set your heading bug. Use that for each one of your segments of your pattern to know exactly when to roll out. So you see we're flying the reciprocal of 3-3, just 1-5 for a heading. Now Brewer Airport is right over here. We'll go over to Brewer after our landing at Bangor, touch and go. And again, Brewer is a good example of a little teeny strip. It's actually a little bit larger than the one we just landed at Lucky's Landing. So we've gained a little altitude, so we want to watch that. And it's okay if you're off a little bit with your altitude. The important thing is through your instrument scan that you notice it and then you correct for it. So even when you're taking your flight test,
2450 wind 286 at 4. Clear touch and go left traffic runway tree.
you can vary.
Cleared for touch and go runway tree, Cessna 2450.
So you can vary a little bit during your flight test as long as you correct for it. So I'm going to come back with our power, holding back pressure to hold our altitude. I'm going to come in with a couple of notches of flaps, and we will trim up for about 50 knots. So we'll know when to roll out is when our heading bug gets right here. So here we can roll out. base leg. This is Bangor Municipal Golf Course. We'll probably see some golfers out there today. And again, we're trimming up. So I'm going to come in with another notch of flaps. And my final notch of flaps. Here for final. You notice we haven't used any power. So things ought to settle down nice here. So Bangor is going to be done by a professional scenery designer, one that's well known. We'll come in just with a little bit of power here to maintain our glide path. Looking good. We'll start our flare, come off with our power. Yeah, so we'll come up with our flaps, come in with full power, and let's head over to Brewer. Now, I mentioned that Brewer, the pattern altitude is 600 feet MSL, so we'll only climb up to about 600 feet. Created this Bangor scenery. It's not the greatest, but it works. So here's the Air National Guard base, KC-135s. So I don't know if ATC is going to get to us. So we'll just make our turn and head over towards Brewer. I'll start coming back with the power here a little bit, because we're going to level off at 600 feet. at 600 feet, things are going to happen pretty quick. Again, you're only 500 feet above the ground. But that's how things happen at Brewer. And of course, the reason why they had to have that low pattern altitude is because it lies directly underneath the flight path for runway 33. So here's 33. Project that out. So here I'm trimmed up, completely flying hands off. This is the Bangor Casino.
Clear touch and go left traffic runway tree.
We'll tell them we're not
Cleared for
going to.
touch and go runway tree, Cessna 2450. Bangor Tower, Cessna 2450, cancel landing intention.
Cessna 2450, your cancellation is received.
This is the Penobscot River.
Bangor approach, Cessna 2450, is type Cessna 152 2 miles south of Bangor, 700 feet. Request clearance to transition Charlie airspace.
Cessna 2450 Bangor approach. Squawk 4156. Cessna 2450 radar contact 2 miles west of 0 Bravo, 2700 feet. Cleared through the Charlie airspace. Maintain own navigation.
We've kept our landing
Cleared
and
through the Charlie
takeoff
airspace,
lights
Cessna
on
2450.
because Brewer is right over here. So not going to be long before we land. So I kept the lights on. I used to fly radio control airplanes out of this little strip right here. Alright, so we are kinda on a left base leg to Brewer. In between a left base and a left downwind. Alright, so let's come back with our power. Couple notches of flaps. And we should be rolling out here shortly. You can see the runway, which we're basically going to be turning final. There's the runway right here. Come in with another notch of flaps. Trimmed up for 50 knots. This is a little golf course here. I'd hook up with the gang mowers to my pickup truck and I mow all of this for the airport. This little airport is privately owned. Brewer Airport. Flaps are coming up. Keep my airplane over in this hangar. Back in the day, come in here, and the two airplanes I learned to fly out of, you'd have 4-1 uniform sitting here and 9-3 Echo sitting there. Alright, let's get our trim set again for takeoff. This is Brewer Airport. So we'll depart Brewer and we'll head back to Old Town. And this will be a quick little tour of the local Bangor flying areas. There's another field not too far from here, Miller's Field. Maybe on another flight I'll take you down to Miller's Field. Alright, let's come in with 10 degrees of flaps. Landing taxi lights on. Alright, let's go. Alright, let's rotate. Flaps. And now let's just climb out at somewhere right around probably 70 knots. Landing taxi lights coming off. And you might be able to tell when I roll out here, head towards Old Town, and we're looking out. If you look out the left window, you'll see what I mean about Bangor being right underneath. Brewer being right underneath Bangor's approach. So let's be looking out the window here. Here's runway 33. Here's Brewer.
Bangor approach Cessna 2450 is type Cessna 152 1 miles southeast of 0 Bravo 2700 feet. Request clearance to transition Charlie airspace.
Cessna 2450 Bangor approach. Squawk 0512.
Squawk 0512 Cessna 2450.
Cessna 2450 radar contact 1 miles east of 0 Bravo to 1,100 feet. Cleared through the Charlie airspace. Maintain own navigation.
Cleared through the Charlie airspace Cessna 2450.
It's kind of fun when you're standing at Brewer and you have an airliner go over landing 133, because you can hear the wingtip vortices, wind vortices coming off the wingtips. It makes quite a bit of noise, and it really makes you think a little bit about. This is why when an airline takes off, excuse me, if you're a small aircraft behind, taking off afterwards, you need to wait a little bit, especially if the conditions are calm, because you're going to need to let those wingtip vortices hit the ground and dissipate before you take off, because if you get caught up in one of those, you're going to have your hands full. So, Penobscot River, and we're going to be flying up to Old Town. Again, I'm flying hands off. up pretty well. And even when you get dialed in with your trim, you know, you may have to just bump things just a teeny bit every once in a while to keep yourself right where you want to be. This big bend in the river right here was an excellent location for salmon fishing, Atlantic salmon. In the wintertime, I'll snowmobile down this power line. I always called this flat top mountain. I don't know what the name of it is, but learning to fly out of Brewer, we'd take off out of Brewer like we just did, and we'd fly out here, and I'd be doing a lot of my air work out here. This is where you'd learn to do your steep turns and power on stalls and power off stalls. So we'd come up here, do some air work, then come over to Old Town, do some touch and goes, and then of course come back to Brewer and do some touch and goes. This is the Penobscot Golf Course. So we're going to be landing 3-0 at Old Town. So let's go ahead and dial that in on our heading indicator. This is the Stillwater River. This is the University of Maine campus. So you can see the beacon over here for Old Town Airport. So this is the Forest Service here. The float planes are parked down here. This is the float plane strip. Alright, so we're going to come back with our power. Couple notches of flaps. And we'll hold the nose level to bleed off some of that airspeed. Trim up for 50. We'll see how things look. Nose should settle down now. So we'll come in with another notch of flaps. So that's looking pretty good. So we'll come in with a little bit of power. Center line, fight for that center line. Let's see if we can grease this one. Our flare wasn't the prettiest. A little late with the flare. But we're down. A lot of deer activity here at the airport. You see a bear every once in a while. Alright, well, let's taxi back to the hangar. Landing lights coming off. Oh, a bear right there. Is clear. Open up a window here, get some air. Taxi lights coming off, strobes coming off. Nice pink airplane. Our little buddy is still out on the tug. Going a little faster this time. Well, I hope you enjoyed the little tour around the Old Town Bangor area. Got to take off and land at some interesting little strips. Maybe give you an idea of some places to go with your own flying, especially float flying. I'd jump in that Beaver and definitely head over to Old Town or Lecky's Landing. Great locations for the Beaver. Alright. There we go. Set our parking brake. Pull our mixture back. And we'll turn our lights off. Power's off. Again, thank you for joining me today. I hope you had some fun. Until next time.